So you want to be a pugilist. If you find yourself beginning your journey in Eorzea as a pugilist, you will arrive in Ul'dah. Your first stop should be the Adventurers Guild in the Waking Sands Tavern and Inn, found on the steps of Nald. From there, guild proprietor Momodi will take note of your physical prowess with fists, and point you in the direction of the Pugilist Guild. If, however, you didn't start your journey as a pugilist, you can simply find the guild just down the street from the Adventurers Guild. You'll pass the hypnotic and majestic crystalline Aethryte on the way, and if you haven't yet, you should attune to it. Moving on, just a few steps away, you'll find the Pugilist Guild tucked away behind a back alley door. The first person you'll meet from the guild is the guild receptionist, Lalafell Gagaruna. Gagaruna will explain that before you join the guild, you must hear the tale of the guild's formation. He will explain that it all began in the Colosseum, when an unknown female upstart jumped into the gladiatorial arena to take on fully armed gladiators. And against all expectations, she defeated them with effortless ease. As would be expected, she garnered a considerable amount of fame as people came to Ul'dah from all the world over to train under her tutelage. Her name was Cornelia. In fact, she became so famous that a fish was even named after her. In any case, her fighting style was marked by the mastery of many different forms and switching between them with strategic grace. Do you like that phrase, strategic grace? I hope so, because I like it. Anyway, moving on. A misty-eyed Gagaruna will explain how important the story of Cornelia is to him before imploring you to seek the Guildmaster's approval. Enter Hamon Holyfist, the legendary master of the Pugilist Guild. On meeting Hamon, you'll find that he's, putting it lightly, a mischievous elder male Midlander here. On expressing your interest to enroll in the guild, Hamon will explain his role as master of the art of hand-to-hand combat. That is, the practice of quickly chaining together successive attacks with bare hands and feet. He will ask you if you can go the distance, and then he'll let you join. Easy enough, right? Now that we've become a pugilist, our first task at the guild will be the typical knuckle-breaking challenge of exterminating the most vile vermin from Thanalan, such as marmots and hornets. Once you've killed a bunch of the creatures in central Thanalan, you can return to Hamon to obtain your accolades as the newest resident exterminator of the Pugilist Guild. After you level up a bit and get re-equipped as a level 5 pugilist, you'll be ready for Hamon's next quest, to find his lost, scattered gill around the steps of Nald. There are 5 piles of scattered gill, which won't take you too long to find. When you're done, you can return the gill to Hamon, who will send you on your way to your next training exercises, to use boot shine on the trial stones found at the Scorpion's Crossing in western Thanalan, and defeat the 4 earth sprites that appear. On returning to Hamon with words of your deeds, he will express content and words of praise that,
"By smiting stone and earth, you forged unyielding weapons of your fists."
Shortly thereafter, you will be introduced to Hamon's right hand, assistant female Lalafell Chichuto. Hamon explains she was his first student after he became guildmaster, before alluding to another mysterious student, which Chichuto shortly after wishes they would disregard, in order to focus on your own tutelage. Or rather, revealing that the collected gill from earlier was actually Chichuto's scattered gill, needed in order to repair her equipment. Whoops! Hamon will then leave you on a high note.
If he keeps up his efforts, he may well become the next Holyfist.
With the quest finished, you will have to level up a bit and perhaps acquire level-appropriate gear before taking on Hamon's next quest. This time, he set up wood dummies along the merchant strip of the steps of Nald, and he wants you to do a boot shine combo on all of them, in front of eagerly watching townspeople. No pressure though, right? Once you've completed the warm-up, he will send you to your next lesson, linking different combat forms by using boot shine, true strike, and snap punch in that order. In order to complete the lesson, you will have to go out to the Rat's Nest in central Thanalan to unleash your combo on the Chichirin, the rat-like beastmen who are found in different parts of Eorzea. When you return to Hamon to report on your deeds, he will be elated at your quick mastery of the snap punch before falling into a fit of nostalgic reminiscence.
Not to brag, but I happen to be a veritable storm of flying fists when the mood strikes me. I'd treat you to a demonstration here and now, except...
Enter Chichuto to fill in the blanks.
I'm liable to tear down the entire guild in the process.
I'm sure that's all it is. Chichuto will explain that Hamon never actually demonstrates his craft anymore, but has a penchant for telling tales of his exploits, with his favorite being victory in a battle against the fearsome marauder Wide Axe. More illusion, perhaps? Chichuto will leave, at which point Hamon will explain that she hasn't been the same since her friend Rurakuda went missing. She and Rurakuda were taken in by Hamon as orphans from the devastation of the calamity. They joined the guild and trained underneath Hamon as friends and rivals until Rurakuda went missing one day without any explanation. And that little side story will complete the quest. As per usual, you'll need to level up a bit and consider rearming yourself with level-appropriate gear, but once you're ready, you can return to Hamon for your next quest. This time, he'll have a more serious task for you. Defeat toxic toads in central Thanalan and acquire their legs. The toads will be found just east of Blackbrush Station in the area called the Clutch. They have a few tricks such as a tongue attack which will pull you in close, where they'll then do a belly flop AoE attack. In any case, once you dispatch 5 toads and acquire their legs, you can return to Blackbrush Station where Hamon and Chichuto will be waiting for you. Hamon will explain his recipe for fried toxic toad leg before Chichuto cuts him off. Before long, a resident of Blackbrush Station will interrupt, requesting that Hamon investigate the smuggling of Somnus into Blackbrush Station. Chichuto explains.
Somnus, that's the mind-warping substance made from dream flowers. Those who overindulge are said to fall into an eternal slumber.
The resident, Nanajapi of Blackbrush, will explain that the same fate befell one of his own friends, coloring his own desire to see Somnus ousted from Blackbrush. Hamon will agree to the request, promising to see the smugglers to justice. With that in mind, instead of going on to your next lesson, Hamon asks you to gather information from the people of Blackbrush Station. You will question 3 residents, including Lalafell Zuzumeda, who explains,
Word is they are associated with the Alakran, a coalition of cold-blooded criminals, but beware, they always act in alliance.
Meanwhile, Midlander Osbert will tell you,
There's an abandoned Chichiran lair a short distance west of the Coffer and Coffin. Decent folk tend to give that place a wide berth, ideal for smuggling operation, wouldn't you say?
If you return to Chichuto, you will find she's already questioned some folks around Blackbrush who described
A silver-haired Lalafell skulking around the station recently. He was headed west, bearing a suspicious burden.
When you report your information back to Hamon, he will comment on your findings and propose that we lie in wait for the smugglers near the abandoned Chichiran lair. If you head just south of the Rat's Nest to where the rail tracks pass over a small valley, you will find a good spot to lie in wait. Before long, a group of Alakran will appear, with both Hamon and Chichuto taken aback by a presence in the group of smugglers. Chichuto will reveal that Rurukata is the Lalafell in the midst of the smugglers. Dun dun dun, plot twist! The pair will exchange words.
Rurukuta, it is you, isn't it?
Chichuto and Master, it's been a while.
You vanish from the guild with nary a word, and we find you here smuggling Somnus with those villains? What is the meaning of this?
Hamon will then chime in, expressing his discontent with the path Rurakuda has chosen, before ordering you and Chichuto to apprehend the group. You will then have to fight a number of Alakran henchmen who are waiting in the shadows. While you're dealing with the minions, Rurakuda will attempt to escape, before being stopped in his tracks by Hamon.
If you know who I am, then you'll know what's good for you. Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Holyfist, don't make me laugh. You're being fooled, all of you.
Who's fooling who? What in the world are you talking about?
It was a dark night several moons ago. I was out in the wilds training alone. From a distance, I caught sight of Master leaving the tavern and turning for the city. Thinking to accompany him back, I followed on his heels and was about to call out when I saw this.
You would challenge the Holyfist? You have fighting spirit, I'll grant you that. But you do well to know your limits. So be it. Raw!
Master?
And so, with Hamon's feeble state of physique exposed, Rurukuda and his Alacran associates will take their opportunity to escape in the confusion. Defeated and sullied, Hamon will apologize for his dishonesty before bidding you to follow Chichudo's command for the time being. Back at the guild, Chichudo will reaffirm her belief in Master Hamon, despite his deception. Frankly, for the good deeds from his past and well-meaning nature behind his character, she will suggest that the Master can regain his former strength and confidence by bearing witness to our own rapid progression. Chichudo will then teach you Steel Peak before bidding you to, well, you guessed it, gain more experience and level up. Taking this opportunity to also gear up, once ready, we will accept the next quest from Master Hamon. That is to say, we would accept a quest from him if he were up to training. The fact of the matter is, Hamon's ego is a little deflated from the previous experience. As such, he asks us to train under Chichudo from now on instead. You'll find Chichudo watching other pugilists training over the sparring ring. Chichudo will reiterate her plan of inspiring the Master through the nostalgic reminiscence spurred on by seeing your own rapid progress, this time suggesting that we emulate his own training regimen of old. In this case, we will head south of Drybone to fight hornet clouds. To this end, we will be required to strike the trees in which the hornets nest and defeat the clouds that emerge. We will then head to Drybone in eastern Thanaland to combat the clouds and acquire 3 hornet stingers in the process. Once the trek is completed, we will return to present the stingers to Master Hamon, who will surely be touched by our following of his old training program. As Chichudo predicted, Hamon will be inspired by the deed, but less predictably, Hamon asks us to spar with him. After dispatching Hamon once in the ring, he will pull himself back up stronger for a second round, and after defeating him again, he will do so a third time. After the third time, Hamon comments on how reinvigorated he is by the match. That is before being interrupted by a malevolent presence.
What are you doing, old man? Learning how to walk?
Enter a menacing Ruganin marauder and his Alacran cronies.
Huh? You're Wegfar White Axe. Ain't none called me that in ages. Nay, not since the day ye defeated me on the Blood Sands. I gave up prize fighting after that for humiliation, but it weren't long till I found a place in the Alacran. Your boy Rurukuta works for me now. Imagine me surprise when I learned he used to train under the mighty Holyfist. But Holyfist ain't nothing but a name these days, so I'm told. How do you sleep at night, knowing how flaccid you've become? Course, if you're having trouble nodding off, ye could always try a whiff of Somnus. I'll even give ye a complimentary sample. But like as not, a doddering old sort like you won't ever wake up again. Shut your mouth, Wegfar, or I'll shut it for you. Now, let's be civilized for just a moment, eh? We're old friends after all, and friends help each other out. You mentioned making a comeback just now. If you're serious about it, I'd be glad to lend a helping hand. By way of motivating you, how's about we have us a rematch? Of course, it'd take place in public, just like good old times. Oh, and there should be a fitting purse as well. Let's say the winner gets the Pugilist Guild.
What? That's ridiculous. Master, you're not obligated to take him up on this.
This must be your little nursemaid. Rest assured, after I've taken over the guild, I'll keep her on as me personal assistant.
Wegfar and his stooges will then walk off, leaving us behind to discuss the challenge that just transpired. Hamon will rather unsurprisingly state his intention to take up the challenge and put responsibility for his victory on us at the same time. His plan is to have us continue training and fighting him to rematches so that he can continue to remember his former abilities through us as a proxy. Pretty weird strategy, but we don't have any option to turn him down or suggest something that makes more sense, so I guess we're stuck with it for now. Or rather, at least until we gain some levels and level appropriate gear so that we're ready to accept the next quest from Hamon. As you're preparing for your next lesson with Hamon, you will quickly learn that he has thrown out his back, and so your charge will be sent to Chichudo instead. Chichudo will be back by the sparring ring and reaffirm that the strategy with Hamon's training seems to be working. Nevertheless, she will request that you meet her at Little Alamigo in southern Thanalan when you're ready to train with her. To start, you will have to set up 4 training dummies for Master Hamon in mostly dangerous areas not far from Little Alamigo. Some of them you will have to sneak past or even fight mobs of enemies in order to set up the dummies. Once you're finished, and you've reported to Chichudo, your discussion will be interrupted by a wayward Rurakuda. Rurakuda will quickly state that he has come to ensure that we don't influence Hamon to fight Wegfar. A battle will ensue with Rurakuda and some beasts. It won't be too difficult of a battle, but Alacran beasts will continue to interrupt, attempting to keep us from joining the fight between Chichudo and Rurakuda. Once Rurakuda has lost, he'll explain that he's doing this all for the sake of Hamon. For knowing how pathetic the Master has become, he doesn't want Hamon to fight Wegfar. Turns out Rurakuda still deeply respects the Master for taking him in and training him as an orphaned refugee all those years ago, and for that reason he doesn't want Hamon to fight Wegfar, believing that Wegfar will kill him. Chichudo attempts to ease Rurakuda's concerns by stating that only by watching our own rise to power will Hamon relive his former glory. A doubtful Rurakuda will then bid us farewell, leaving the Master's fate in our hands. After all that, it's time to return to the guild so Hamon can continue his training. After turning in the quest, we will once again have to level up and get level appropriate gear before taking on the final Pugilist quest. On speaking to Master Hamon, he will thank you for placing all of the dummies in the previous quest, expressing that he would like to train in the Sagoli Desert of southern Thanalan. You will meet him at the edge of the Forgotten Springs, not quite in the desert. He will explain that we are to spar again, so that he can progress just as we sparred before, but not before we have to warm up against 5 sandworms in the desert. Running just south of the springs, you'll find a tall sand dune that the sandworms call home. They are pretty gross looking, but you won't have much trouble with them at this stage. Once you've completed your warm-up, return to where you left Hamon to initiate your sparring match. Once again, when you beat Hamon to the first round, he will come back stronger for a second round. Similarly to the previous sparring match, he will also come back stronger after you defeat him a second time. After the third round, he will call a stop to the training to speak of his growth.
As a river flows to the sea, heedless of all that bars its path, so too must our own combinations be. Oh, that even rhymes.
Sure, but don't go trying to claim it as poetic. But before you can so much as consider whether Hamon has truly regained his former fighting prowess, Chichudo runs up, exclaiming that Wegfar has appeared in the streets, demanding to fight Hamon. As such, Hamon will take up the challenge and return to Ul'dah to fight Wegfar. Once you arrive, you will see Hamon approach Wegfar, standing toe-to-toe with the Rugadin brute.
Heh, I didn't expect you to come so soon, if at all. You sure you want to go ahead with this? I'm a man of reason, and I'd sooner not have to hurt ye. Just give up now, and we can put an end to this mummer's farce. You can live out the rest of your days in peace. The only mummer's farce I see is a man trying to squirm out of his own self-wrought challenge. Well, I'm going to make you the same offer. Walk away and you won't get hurt.
They say Hamon Holyfist is going to perform his legendary technique. Right here in the avenue. Is it safe?
Yeah, I see age has robbed ye of your wits, as well as your strength. Well, if you're so eager for pain, who am I to deny ye? Just remember, there ain't no going back once your head goes flying.
Wegfar will then strike with his mighty axe, but at the last moment, Hamon will burst forth with amazing speed to deliver a single snap punch to knock the marauder off his feet.
Just like old times, eh, Wegfar?
Did you see that? 'Cause I sure as hell didn't. He was too fast.
No, this can't be. I refuse to be beaten by a senile old fool.
Wegfar will then take a pipe of some sort of power-enhancing paraphernalia before calling on his cronies.
Get your arses out here, all of ye.
At this moment, Rurakuda will run away from his Alacran allies.
Case you're wondering, that was Pluto. Just a draft of it, and your body turns as hard as iron. Not even a blade can pierce it. Stubborn bugger.
Joining Hamon's side with Chichudo, we will not so surprisingly also be joined by Rurakuda.
Rurakuda, but why?
I refuse to fight on the side of cheats.
Yeah, say your prayers to whatever gods ye keep. By the time I'm finished, not even your mothers will recognize ye.
Battle will then ensue between the forces of the Alacran and the Pugilist Guild. While Hamon keeps Wegfar occupied, it will be our primary task to even the odds by knocking out the numerous Alacran interlopers. They'll be running all over the place, chasing Rurakuda and Chichudo around the streets. But before long, they'll be defeated, allowing us to focus on Wegfar. Once Wegfar is defeated, Chichudo will exclaim,
You did it, Master Hamon. You won.
Master?
No, Chichudo. We won. The victory wasn't mine alone.
Nearby onlookers will crowd around the victorious pugilists, congratulating everyone for putting the Alacran to rest.
Our work here is done. Let us all go home to the guild.
After a very touching reunion, or rather punching reunion, Rurakuda, Chichudo, and Hamon will walk off into the sunset. As for us, we'll have to follow behind at a distance before turning over the quest to Hamon. After thanking us, Hamon will express his personal joy that Rurakuda has returned. Rurakuda will then explain that he's done with the Alacran and will instead become a wandering pugilist in order to train across the land in hopes of becoming as great a pugilist as Hamon. Hamon will congratulate you for finishing your training at the guild, but explain that your journey as a pugilist has only just begun, and that there are many more trials on the road ahead. Yeah, typical, in becoming a master, you return to the realization that you're still just a mere student type stuff. Nevertheless, he leaves you with some words of inspiration.
So long as your spirit burns bright and your fists fly with conviction, there's nothing you can't achieve. I'm the living proof. Forge onward, young one, and create a legend for yourself, never to be forgot.
And thus ends the final quest of the Pugilist Guild. Where the journey goes next? Well, word has it that the monks of the Fist of Rhalgar practice a similar art to the pugilists. But as for now, the time to explore that avenue of training will have to wait, for we have also reached the end of this video. This video was a pretty big undertaking and took a ton of work to put together. As such, if you enjoyed it, I would really love some feedback or even just a thumbs up or a follow to let me know. Until next time, folks, have fun and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!